Welcome to the Darkstream. I'm Vox Day, voxday.blogspot.com, and of course, Infogalactic News. What's up? I'm in a good mood, as you can probably tell. If you've been on the blog, then you'll know what the title of this Darkstream refers to. Now, as you know, thank you. This is the new shirt. This is the shirt. Where can you get the shirt? Go to crypto.fashion or go to my blog and click on Dark Lord Designs. You all need this shirt, and here's why. Here's why. I'm gonna blow your minds now. Are you ready? Are you ready? Okay. That's what it's all about. So much winning. So, anyhow, it's a fun shirt. Let's put it this way. I mean, the best part is people see it and they kind of look at it, and then they see the back and they laugh. I mean, even people who don't like Trump laugh at that. So, we are happy warriors. We are not SJWs. We're happy, we're optimistic, and we're ready for 2020. We're looking forward. We're not just ready for 2020. We're looking forward to 2020. I mean, yes, the world is a terrible place. We live in a fallen planet. We live in a fallen world. We live on a silent planet, but we don't care. So, anyhow, the interesting thing was, now let me give you a little background for those of you who don't understand what we're talking about with the torpedo and Tor Delenda Est and all that sort of thing. But Tor Books is the largest publisher in science fiction. They are also very, very SJW converged. They have ruined science fiction. They combined it with romance, and really destroyed it to the point that Amazon recently had to tell authors that they were no longer allowed to put their book in both the science fiction and fantasy and romance categories, because so many romance writers were doing that, and Tor was publishing this stuff. Yeah, I mean, you think we're joking when we talk about Wereseal love stories. I got a book from Tor, and it was all about the love story between the lighthouse keeper's daughter, and a selkie. Now, what a selkie is essentially is a wereseal. It's a seal in the ocean, but then it comes out and it's a sexy, sexy man that lonely but beautiful lighthouse keeper's daughters can have sex with. I mean, that was the state of science fiction 10 years ago. And it's gotten worse. Back in the year 2000, the Nebula Award was given to a horrible, horrible book. I actually kept it. Tor sent it to me for review. I actually kept it because the cover was so bad. It was called The Quantum Rose. And it was written by this woman who, by all accounts, is very nice. And she actually has a degree in physics, if I recall correctly, maybe even a PhD, I don't recall. But the whole thing was basically about strong, independent women in space and the barbarian space pilots who crash on their planet and respect them. I mean, it was like the saga of the Scolian Empire or something. It's so bad. It's Twilight in space. and it's just Catherine Asaro. That's it. That's right. I mean, it's utter shit. It is unreadable, and that's the stuff. I mean, Twilight was too. And the thing is, yeah, some people like to read this stuff, and that's fine. But you don't need to completely ruin an existing genre and be parasitical on that genre and prevent everyone from reading it. Seven Eves by Neil Stephenson is very interesting because I've never been able to decide whether he is doing it tongue-in-cheek or whether he just basically waved the white flag and said, fine, you want to read this shit, I'll give it to you. But and that's part of why Castalia House was set up. We wanted to give authors a chance to actually publish real science fiction, real heroic fantasy. We have disagreements within the Castalia family as well. There's this constant argument going on, mostly Jason Jones, also known as Daddy Warpig. We thought about it as a Campbellian revolution, and Jason has made a very compelling argument, frankly, that Campbell was originally part of the problem. And so it's just one of those things that it's fine. I mean, maybe we do need to go back to pulp, and that's okay with us. We're happy to publish that kind of stuff too. That's not necessarily what I'm going to write, but we're perfectly willing to publish it as long as it's good. I'm certainly not going to turn down the next Edgar Rice or whatever Edgar Rice Burroughs or any of those other the Merritts of the world. I'm not going to turn down authors who can do that kind of stuff. If it's cool, if it's well written, if it's exciting, that's good. Turn off Skype here for a second. I need to make sure online status. There we go. Okay, there we go. Well, I keep nuking the people who complain about the volume, so eventually they're all going to go away, So anyhow, so with Tor. Now here's what's going on. I said, a lot of people were celebrating when John Scalzi signed his big, whatever it was, $2.5 million contract a couple of years ago. And I pointed out that for that money, Tor Books could have signed over 1,000 new writers and published over 1,000 new writers, giving them their basic contracts. Now, of course, that's not quite fair because there are additional costs. It's a lot cheaper to produce one book and try to sell a whole bunch of copies of one book than it is to produce 1,000 books and sell 1,000th as many. You do have economies of scale and so forth, but it's still a bad idea. Does he sell that? Well, the thing you got to keep in mind is it was a 13-book deal, so it really wasn't that big a deal. I mean, $113,000 advance is actually a pretty reasonable thing to pay somebody who is selling as many books as John Scalzi was. But what's not wise is to sign him to 13, especially when the guy would rather screw around on Twitter than actually write, and especially when he's a stunt writer. So basically all the stuff he was doing, you can look at his books and you go, okay, first he was ripping off Heinlein, then he was ripping off H. Beam Piper, then he was ripping off Philip K. Dick, and then he was ripping off Star Trek. Okay, you can only do that so long, and so now with the collapsing empire, he decided he was going to try ripping off Asimov, and so and of course you probably know about we've announced the Corroding Empire, which is basically our way of saying we can do a better book in way less time for way less cost and sell more copies than he can. And so that's been kind of fun, and it's been interesting. But see, now here's where it gets interesting. Remember, I told you that there was a problem when they were committing all those resources to Scalzi. That meant they were not giving them to other authors. Well, I'm pretty dialed in to the mainstream publishing world. I happen to know people at Simon & Schuster. I know people at Random House. I know people at Macmillan. Macmillan, by the way, owns Tor Books. And so what I have heard is that there's two things to keep in mind. First, they cut the pre-order price of the Collapsing Empire to what is basically selling it at cost. Now, why do you do that? Why would you ever do that? Because it means that you're basically handing $12 back to every person who pre-ordered it, because they will only pay the lower price before it ships. But it's not just poor expectations of sales. You see, when you're doing a big book, part of the reason, remember we're talking about economies of scale. So when you do a big book, you don't print them on demand. The smaller books tend to be printed on demand. The bigger books, they have to do what they're called print runs. Now, if you have, 113,000 invested in the book, but remember, his book slipped by a year. He delivered a year late. So now, suddenly, that means that they need to make up for that missing year. So they actually need the book to not only be a hit, but a home run. So what do? You need the book to be a home run, so you have to print enough books to sell. You don't have a home run if you don't print enough books. So what they did is they went out and they printed a bunch of books. Now they didn't print anywhere nearly as many as they needed just to break even, but they printed a bunch of them, probably something between 50 and 100,000. And so they have 50 and 100,000, but they've probably got pre-orders for somewhere around 2,000, based on the ranks and stuff that we see. So suddenly they're sitting on all these books, and all these books cost money because you got to store them, and it costs money to pulp them. And so what they are trying to do now is they're not even trying to make money on Scalzi stuff anymore. So what they're trying to do is they're just trying to get those books out of the warehouse. And so now beyond this, there are ramifications beyond this. Okay, they'll do what they need to do with Scalzi and whatnot eventually. I mean, they're probably not going to cut them yet, but my money was on after he delivered his third book and turned in his fourth and got it rejected. He may not publish a second book on that contract. We'll see. But what's interesting is that I have heard from my sources in the publishing industry that Tor is now releasing from their contracts a number of their established mid-list authors. So how can you confirm this? How can we confirm this? We can confirm this when we start seeing various authors whose names some of you will recognize if you follow science fiction. You will see them announce. No, not NK. She doesn't. No, I never name my sources. If you name your sources, then they don't talk to you. So, but the point is, and I'm not asking you to believe this. I'm not asking you to go out and invest money on this basis. I am simply passing along yet another data point that is in line with what I have predicted for Tor books for some time now. Now, some of you might say, does this have anything to do with the boycott that we started? I doubt it. I don't think it has anything to do with that. I don't. But what you're going to see exactly, when you start seeing these mid-list authors suddenly announce that they are dipping their toes into self-publishing, and they'll come up with some noble excuse, and I just really want to try it out, and I've heard so many great things about it, and blah blah blah. But if they're a Tor author, and if they have been publishing through Tor, and they announce that they are self-publishing, you know what happened. Now, some of them may come out and admit it, you know. Others won't. Yeah, I don't blame them. You know, for a lot of traditionally published authors, and I was a traditionally published author. Remember, I had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I had 7 books signed to Pocket Books. You know, back in the days before Amazon and self-publishing. So, you know, I can understand the pride that people took in being a published author. You know, there is a certain status to it. Are any going to be worthy of Castalia? That's a good question. There are 1 or 2 that I wouldn't mind talking to. Obviously, a lot of the Tor authors I have no interest in whatsoever. But not for ideological reasons. Just, you know, the stuff that they write is not the stuff that we publish. It's just not a good fit. But you know, if there are any authors who do, you know, what we call blue science fiction, or, you know, genuine military science fiction as opposed to, you know, the Scalzified version of it, yeah, you know, we'll be happy to talk to them. I think that we would probably be a good partner for some authors. For other authors, they wouldn't want to work with us, and we wouldn't want to work with them. And then there's other authors where, you know, I have no idea what it is they're doing, and it wouldn't make any sense. And so, you know, we'll wait and see. But you know, that's how it always is. I mean, publishing is about more than just dollars and cents. It's also about trust. You know, a author has to trust that a publisher will keep his interests in mind. A author has to trust his editor. You know, if you don't have that kind of trust, it's very difficult to work successfully together. You know, I mean, John Wright and I don't agree on everything. Far from it. You know, we have some very fundamental disagreements when it comes to certain things about writing and characters and that sort of thing. I'm not talking about politics or ideology. I'm just saying that in terms of how to tell a story. We have, you know, if you read our books, if you read my novels and you read John Wright's novels, you can see that we have like nothing in common. But we have a very good author-editor relationship. I trust him, he trusts me. You know, right now I'm working with Peter Grant on his new Western. And, you know, Peter just keeps getting better. But there's still some things that I'd like to see him keep working on. And, you know, he's really good about it. He's fantastic about just saying, you know, I mean, he doesn't accept everything I say. You know, some things I tell him and he's like, let me go back and think about that. There's other things he goes, oh, I didn't realize I was doing that. I'll fix it. So, but that's what a good author-editor relationship is. And, you know, regardless of how well these mid-list authors that Tor is cutting, regardless of how good they are, they have to fit with Castalia. They have to be able to work with us, even if they don't agree with us. And so that'll be interesting. Now, the other interesting thing, and a lot of people do not realize this, is that Tor owns 25% of Bane. And so I don't know if this is going to have a knock-on effect on the Bane mid-list. But it's an obvious possibility. So we'll have to see, you know, but I think, you know, as someone who has, you know, we have Tor Delenda Est, I think it appears on the blog at least a couple times a week. You know, I have maintained my Tor boycott and have not bought any Tor books in, you know, well over ever since, you know, I announced it a year ago, or ever since it was announced and I endorsed it a year ago. But so these are interesting times, and it'll be interesting to see what comes of it. In the meantime, Castelia is going to keep doing what Castelia does. We're going to keep publishing our authors. We're going to keep trying to get better. I said on the blog today, baby metal is one of our models, and that may sound a little crazy. Like, why? What does a publishing house and a band have to do with each other? But the interesting thing about baby metal is that it is a unique vision, one guy's unique vision. He has assembled exceptional talent around this vision, and he is able to do a much wider range of things than the vast majority of bands can do. If you, 21 Pilots is impressive in their range, but it's nothing compared to what the baby metal team can do. And so that's what I want Castelia to become. I want Castelia to become a publishing house that is excellent, uniformly excellent at everything it does, from military strategy to history to science fiction to fantasy to westerns, and even to the our dabbling in literature, mostly literary satire. All of that stuff that we're doing, we are striving for excellence. Are we uniformly there yet? No, not at all. But my books are better than they were 10 years ago. I think the same thing is true of a number of the authors with whom we're working, and hopefully we're going to be able to continue that. And and we definitely appreciate the massive support that we get from our readers. We have authors who come and talk to us just because they say, hey, we want to get in. We want to get in on this. We want to, we want to introduce ourselves to your readers because they're so fantastic. And so, so that's a great thing. Anyhow, that's what's going on. This is just kind of a random. I was talking to some people. I heard some things. I thought you guys might be interested. I realize it's a little bit inside baseball, but sometimes these things are interesting to hear about. So, anyhow, if you're interested in the shirts, you can find them at crypto.fashion, and otherwise, we'll look forward to seeing you soon. Have a good evening.